Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, more about the president's trip to China. How will it impact American farmers? Plus, what is cotton, a special tie-in to our main feature later in the show. In Southern Gardening, want to refresh your landscape? Consider adding a touch of white. And rebuilding the American clothing industry with Mississippi cotton. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. President Trump's high-stakes trade summit with China is over, but deep-seated tensions remain, and American farmers are left waiting for results. Laurel Bauer has the story.
President Trump met with Chinese President Xi this week in a highly anticipated two-day summit to discuss divisive issues such as the Iran war, trade, technology, and Taiwan. Both presidents used the platform to address their differences in an effort to avoid a repeat of the trade war ignited last year after Trump added tariffs to products imported into the U.S. The agricultural sector was paying special attention to the talks and whether or not there would be a deal where China would buy more U.S. farm products. U.S. soybean exports to China, a huge market for American farmers, declined at one point amid the dispute. With few breakthroughs made on this trip, the trade truce reached by Trump and Xi in October of last year will likely be extended. Key aspects of that deal included China's agreement to resume buying U.S. soybeans and other agricultural products, and a tariff truce where the U.S. dropped threats of 100% duties on certain items and a decrease in average tariffs on Chinese goods from 57% to 47%. Soybean prices moved higher this week as the summit began, but dropped sharply on Thursday as the market was disappointed by a lack of concrete new Chinese agricultural purchase agreements. Despite initial reports of progress for the beef sector, Reuters is reporting a sudden policy reversal occurred when China renewed, then quickly revoked export licenses for hundreds of U.S. beef plants. The move signaled there were still deep-seated trade tensions between the two superpowers.
Later in the show, rebuilding the American clothing industry. But first, much of that rebuilding coming with a signature Mississippi row crop many may not really know intimately: cotton, the number 6 commodity. Take a look. It's a regular sight along the highways of America, especially the South. It's a staple crop for many states and countries, and is one of the most commonly grown non-food crops in history: cotton. However ubiquitous this agricultural commodity, it's also a very interesting plant in its own right. So, what makes cotton so special, and why is it such an important crop? Historically, the word cotton comes from the Arabic word kutan and was first produced in India as a clothing fiber. There are several varieties native to different parts of the world, grown in subtropical climates in the U.S., Brazil, China, Turkey, Australia, and many other countries. In the United States, Texas is the largest cotton producer, but Mississippi was once one of the largest growing regions of the world.
Cotton is a little different than your other grain crops. You know, like a soybean, for instance, you have like vegetative, like emergence, VE, V1, 2, 3, 4, R1, whatever. Well, you know, in cotton we have emergence, and then we kind of go by loosely like a node count or leaf, you know, depending on who you're talking to. And so sometimes it's referred to the, you know, early season, mid-season, late season. And if you were to look at it that way, That's about 3 40-day periods, which make up about 120 days. So let's just say you're in the early season, that's gonna have your emerging cotton, and then maybe a week or two, depending on the weather, then you get your first true leaf. And then, from there you start adding nodes and leaves, and then somewhere around 10, 12 node, 12 leaf cotton is when it's squaring. And then when you get more into the mid-season, is when you start to get into blooms. Those squares will turn into blooms. A bloom takes somewhere between 45 and 60 days to become an open boll. We have this thing called cutout in cotton. Every state kind of defines that a little differently. And so just trying to get to that point to where if anything happens at the top of that plant, like from insects, irrigation, whatever, you can stop, and that top yield is not economical anymore. So, and then you're in the late season defoliation, harvest, and that's a whole nother ball of wax.
There are 4 main types of cotton that each have their own special characteristics. Pima cotton, native to South America and the American Southwest, considered the finest type in the world due to its fibers being extra soft and long. Egyptian cotton, very similar to Pima cotton, but it's grown in the Nile River Valley in Egypt. Upland cotton, the most commonly grown in the world, has short fibers, native to and grown in Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and southern Florida. And organic cotton, which is any type of cotton grown without chemicals and not genetically engineered. The most common use for cotton is the production of fabrics, clothing, and textiles. So what qualities make it suited for the task? It's a soft fiber, comfortable when worn next to the skin. It's absorbent and holds dye very well. It's breathable, which means it allows air and moisture to easily pass through it, so it helps regulate body temperature and keep the wearer comfortable. It also doesn't conduct electricity, so it does not produce static cling. Another use for cotton is the production of cottonseed oil, which is used in food, candles, makeup, soap, and other oil-based products. Market-wise, cotton is commonly traded both in the U.S. and abroad, and the common market factors affecting its price tend to be similar to most other commodities: supply and demand. The supplies of raw cotton fiber waiting to be refined versus the current demand for cotton-based clothing, textiles, and other products. You might think that there is always a demand for clothing, but cotton has competition in the marketplace thanks to synthetic fibers along with wool and linen. This makes the price of cotton fluctuate with current design trends and fabric needs. All in all, cotton is an important crop grown internationally that's provided humanity with comfort, warmth, and style. It's been a staple crop for generations, and there's no sign of that stopping anytime soon.
Want to give your garden a fresh new look that lasts all summer long? Eddie Smith showcases 3 gorgeous, heat-loving white flowers that thrive in our tough southern heat.
Today, we're highlighting a few white flowering plants that deliver beauty all season long. Let's start with butterfly white pentas. These classic white blooms resemble bright little stars, and they don't hold back when it comes to flowering. From spring all the way until the first fall frost, this plant produces clusters of blooms, sometimes up to 20 clusters on a single plant at one time. That means you're getting continuous color and impact in your landscape. And as an added bonus, pentas are a magnet for butterflies and other pollinators, bringing movement and life into your garden space. Next up is Pacifica XP Polka Dot Vinca, a real charmer in the summer garden. This variety features crisp white petals accented with delicate pink eyes right in the center. It's a subtle detail, but it really makes the flower pop. This vinca is a tough, heat-loving plant that thrives in our southern summers. It's perfect for those sunny spots where other plants might struggle, and it keeps blooming beautifully even through the hottest days. And of course, no conversation about white flowers in the South would be complete without the iconic southern magnolia. Across Mississippi and the Southeast, this tree is a true symbol of southern landscapes. In late spring and into summer, it produces those unforgettable creamy white blooms that can reach up to 8 inches in diameter. So if you're looking to refresh your garden this season, consider adding a touch of white. I'm Eddie Smith. I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, rebuilding the American clothing industry. In the early days, Americans made their own clothes. Then 150 years ago, the apparel industry boomed. But more recently, a severe slide and a low point with COVID. Now, are things turning around? We'll visit 2 companies where hope springs eternal thanks to a resurgence and Mississippi's prized crop, cotton. Putting our pants back on. Coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
Mississippi, let's get moving. Join the Magnolia Moves Activity Challenge. The Mississippi State University Extension Service is offering this virtual challenge for individuals of any age or teams of family, colleagues, students, church members, or any other group. Join the 6-week April the 20th through May 31st challenge at no cost, and you'll set your own goals for becoming more active and eating healthier. You'll download the MoveSpring app or use the desktop version. Register for Magnolia Moves, and with automatic tracking, your movements and activities will be captured automatically to give you a clear, real-time view of your progress and achievements. Also, Extension will hold weekly prize drawings for participation across 5 different age categories. So join us and get fit and feel better, eat healthier, manage your weight, and exercise regularly. Magnolia Moves makes fitness accessible, practical, and enjoyable for everyone. Visit msuext.ms/Magnolia Moves to learn more, ask questions, and register today.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Prices trending up.
Indeed they are. So how's that affecting the Mississippi farmer? We'll get into it. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then, multiple MSU experts tell us about the state of row crops in Mississippi, specifically rice and cotton. So, markets closed trending up, but mostly split with row crops the most affected. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, wheat up 16.5 cents. That's more than a 2.5% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, cotton, down nearly 4.5 cents. That is more than a 5% decrease from the previous week. So as you've seen, row crop prices in flux right now, but mostly on the upswing. So how has that affected things here in Mississippi? I spoke with Extension row crop economist Dr. Will Maples recently, and his take was, based on a lower acreage of rice than we've had in a long time, combined with rising cotton prices, these are the commodities to follow right now.
So, we're looking at a historically low planted acres of rice in the state. And that's just a symptom of what the market has been. Coming into harvest last fall, the rice prices, the bottom dropped down on them. You still got some folks that have rice in their bins. You have some producers in Mississippi, and it's even worse over in Arkansas, that still have 2024 crop in their bins. So it's also just, so farmers responding to market signals. The prices just are not there for rice. They had trouble getting it moved, getting it shipped. We're having some issues in the export market, some milling quality issues around the markets. So my outlook is, I don't know exactly how much we got planted, but we're not planting much rice at all this year. Cotton's actually one bright spot right now. You look at the December cotton futures contract right now, it's 87 cents. Things been doing nothing but climbing over these last 2 months. It's just really exciting right now with cotton is we actually are seeing some life. So we've sat here for 3 years, it's felt like, and talked about 65, 60 cent cotton. We got over 80 cent cotton now out there. So we've pulled back in acres. Stocks are about steady where they were last year. Global stocks are going to be pulled back this year as well. So it's just good to see that there's some life in cotton prices right now that farmers can take advantage of.
Moving on to focus on one of those commodities, rice. Quite a bit developing these days considering the massive loss of acreage here and all over the country for that matter. So what are the challenges rice farmers are facing right now, especially in the Southeast? Extension crop specialist Dr. Will Eubank recently spoke on the Mississippi Crop Situation podcast to tell us.
To the planting question, I would say we're probably, if not 100%, 99, because I know a couple of guys probably waited till the last minute, but get their beans in first. But everybody I've talked to has been done for a while. We're well underway. Acreage wise, down probably 100,000 acres down to, we lost 100,000 acres down to like 50. But I've talked to some of the seed salesmen, and I think we'll be around 50, 55. That's the lowest since whenever they started instituting the acreage allotment. That's the lowest it's been since then. And we're not the only ones feeling that. I mean, Arkansas is going to be down below 1 million acres for the first time since the 80s, I think. And Texas has been dealing with a bunch of different things, but they're going to start losing acreage as well. I think they're predicted to be still about 90 to 100,000. Louisiana's pretty consistent as well as California, but Missouri's going to be down just a little bit as well. So it's all across the Mid-South. Most of the Mid-South rice entomologists, specialists have been scouting all throughout the winter. I know Don and I have been looking. We've got a field that we had a huge infestation in last year in just south of us. Haven't seen anything in that field, and then Don got a call from a place down up in Bolivar last year, and we went and scouted it. There's no rice up yet as some volunteer rice, but we did sweep the ryegrass that was on the roadside because that's supposedly a host for Delphacid. Didn't find any there either. The most reassuring part is that Louisiana and Texas, where they've been finding the majority of the Delphacid, no one's seen anything. They've been scouting. Louisiana and Texas have both done a really good job scouting this pest, and no one's reported anything. But again, it's really early in the season. I mean, we still have, nobody's even gone to flood yet. They're a little farther along in Louisiana and Texas than we are, but still, I think that we'll start hearing reports of it about mid-season in Texas and Louisiana. And with our heavy freeze this past winter, hopefully we won't get too much of a population, and with reduced rice acres, maybe they don't have much of a host. But additionally, I did hear some interesting thoughts. If you do have jasmine rice, they do prefer jasmine rice. So if you have fields that are jasmine surrounded by a couple, whether it be hybrid or conventional, they're going to target that jasmine first. So keeping an eye on it is going to be paramount if you do have some of that. I did hear some of that going out in Mississippi this year, so for those of you that do, be aware of that.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Looks like row crop prices starting to fall, but all it'll take is a good weather story to bump them right back up again. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. With a relentless tug of war and trade, easy to understand why American clothing manufacturing nearly flatlined. But there's increasing reason for hope, and Mississippi cotton could play a role. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more.
In the early days of the nation's history, most clothing worn by Americans was made at home. Mass manufacturing of clothes didn't take off until the late 1880s, rapidly growing into a booming industry centered in New York City. Apparel companies soon began to crop up elsewhere, including in distant rural communities with a nearby supply of cotton or with other industries whose workers needed certain types of clothing.
We started in 1903 Shawnee, Oklahoma was a big railroad town at the time. It had two different railroads, the Rock Island and the Santa Fe railroads both met here. And the railroad workers needed something to wear, and so we got started by producing jeans for the railroad workers to wear.
In recent decades, however, the once thriving U.S. clothing industry has undergone a disheartening historic shift. 30 years ago, there were more than 741,000 production employees below the level of supervisor. That number has since slid over 92%. The job count hit a low point during the COVID pandemic, with just 49,100 apparel workers in April of 2020.
Apparel manufacturing in the United States has always been important for rural America, and it's something that probably reached its high point in the 1960s and 1970s. And since then, we've really been losing a lot of apparel factories, the majority of them.
However, there is reason for cautious optimism. Other than that dip during COVID, the industry's apparel manufacturing employment levels may have begun to level off in recent years, hovering around 65,000. What has been left behind is a kind of camaraderie among those who survived a period when most clothing manufacturing moved overseas.
The industry for American-made products probably is growing more and more amicable. More and more people see it as something that we want everyone to thrive in. And so probably in the 60s and 70s, you had a lot more competition where people were fighting and actually trying to steal sales from other people. But we think it's great when anybody that makes something in the United States has sales, and we want to encourage other people to start a company.
Today, over 98% of the clothing sold in the U.S. retail market is imported, the majority from Asia. Roundhouse, which has about 30 employees, survived by keeping expenses carefully under control. The company, which David Antosh owns with his father and brother, made it a priority to keep their American-made jeans and overalls affordable. They sell over 100,000 pairs of jeans annually, using 100% American-grown cotton. They don't advertise, and the owners can often be found working on the factory floor.
We have employees here who have spent their lives working here and know how to make jeans as quickly and as efficiently as possible, because our whole goal is to make affordable American-made jeans. We try to keep everything here at $59.
Roundhouse has found that consumers are seeking out American-made clothing as it becomes harder to find. Over 90% of the company's international sales are done in Japan, where customers are willing to pay for the heavier denim and the attention to detail. 700 miles to the north, Fox River Mills in northern Iowa continues to manufacture its socks and other apparel in the community of Osage, which has a population of about 3,500.
Fox River Mills is the oldest operating sock mill in the United States. It was founded 120 years ago along the Fox River in Appleton, Wisconsin, and ended up here in Osage, Iowa. Continually operating, never stopped, didn't stop for any of the major events that we've seen throughout our history, continued to knit products. So I'm very proud of that heritage, for sure.
Warren says their niche market of specialty and high-quality socks, ranging from military to high-tech to casual, as well as knitting products for other companies, has helped them survive.
With the globalization of trade and trade agreements and the impacts of those through the 80s and 90s, we saw that filter offshore, and you fast forward to today, I think maybe only 3% or somewhere in that range is apparel is manufactured in the United States. So dramatic change, certainly a global economy, certainly a competitive open market for the most part.
Fox River relies on the town and surrounding area to keep their 170-person workforce strong as they turn out 5 million pairs of socks annually. In turn, the town counts on those Fox River jobs to help keep the area economically viable.
A lot of apparel manufacturing started in small town America, and you see a lot of that in the Southeast. Through Alabama, the Carolinas, you see small town America with manufacturing plants that sustain those communities and sustain those families for many, many years. Some towns that still have manufacturing, but it's just a fraction of what it used to be.
Both Roundhouse and Fox River struggle to find experienced workers in rural areas with smaller populations. However, smaller communities do provide some marketing benefits.
One example would be our knit in Iowa is really the moniker that we claim. We're made in the USA and we're knit in Iowa, and we're very proud of that heritage. And you can create, an identity, which we have over the course of many decades, that connects and resonates with many consumers.
Both companies are hopeful due to the hint of a small resurgence in U.S. apparel manufacturing.
It's not huge, but you're seeing a lot of smaller entrepreneurial operations that are coming into, in some cases, abandoned locations that still have old equipment, and renovating that equipment and establishing brands and establishing a brand proposition around specialty.
And should the U.S. apparel industry continue to grow stronger, Fox River and Roundhouse expect to be right there pushing the needle for another 100 years.
So not all the news is good, but there's hope for a continued resurgence, and Mississippi will certainly play a role in that growth. Well, next time on Farm Week, proof that farming is the school of hard knocks.
For more than 100 years, Oregon has been America's hazelnut capital. But since the 80s, one challenge after another brought prices down dramatically.
We head to the Willamette Valley, where one family has learned to use every tool in the toolbox to keep his head above water. Farming and the long-term play next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.